Hello there, listeners to the Bylines Network podcast. Back at you again with another 5-year anniversary in this brand new year of 2026. I'm Julian in Bristol.
I'm Chris in London.
I'm Charlotte in Ashford, and I've been editing Kent and then later Kent and Surrey Bylines for 4.5 years, since 2021. I came into it because Chris convened a meeting. Perhaps Chris would like to tell us about that.
Hello, I'm Chris Hammond. I live in Canterbury and near Würzburg in northern Bavaria. I was involved from the beginning with this. Louise Horton approached me and several others, and we decided to set up a meeting, and we haven't looked back since.
I'm Magdalena, who is at the moment in Spain, but I joined Kent and Surrey Bylines because I used to live in Kent, and I've also been there from the very beginning.
And I'm Mike. I'm also in Spain, and I joined Remain in Spain, a protest group against Brexit, and did a crazy trip with Magdalena from Budapest all the way through Europe, back down to the AGM of Remain in Spain, who were then each of them writing for the Bylines network in different areas. And I chose Kent and Surrey because that's where I've got children. I have just submitted my 58th article that I've written in the last 3 years. I'm passing through Kent and Surrey over Christmas, over a few days, on my way to Australia, where I've also got children. And I will continue to write articles from there. And I'm beginning to concentrate. I'm ex-military, so Tatiana, my thoughts are with Ukraine every single day, and especially at the moment. And I'm also very interested in global warming, marine conservation, especially being ex-Navy. And I'm going to be concentrating on that sort of subject, a bit more ecology.
I'm Richard, ex-Merchant Navy. We do things that the Royal Navy can't do. Like Gary, we get shot at.
Hey, no, I remember this from my friends being in the Army Cadets. None of this rivalry here, please.
I've done a lot of things. As I said, I started off in the Merchant Navy for 15 years. Then I was in various other bits and pieces, and I ended up in local government one way or other. So the sort of things I write about obviously are local things, such as the reorganisation, the pantomime that's going on at Maidstone with the Reform Party, and various other general things.
Right, well, first of all, how did Kent and Surrey Bylines get started, and what were the early days like?
Well, in those days, we were a team of only 5. Chris had convened meetings, 2 or 3, the previous year in 2020. To my recollection, there were as many as 40 attendees. But once we actually started, many people didn't actually really come on board. And we were mostly a team of 5. We started off with Andy Pye as editor, but once the cricket season started, he had other priorities. At that stage, I was commissioning editor, but I was able to step in to help with editing. And Magdalena also had editing skills at that stage, and was also writing. And then Nicholas Kerr was doing all the uploading. He used to work every evening. We had a proofreader as well called Linda, but we kept going in that way for something like 2.5 years with just a very small team of 5.
We had a lot of meetings, I seem to recollect, and it all started September, October in the autumn of 2020. And we then decided, well, we need to kick off. And I think it was Louise Horton who more or less suggested we'll start in January 21. And off we went. And it was very successful. But as Charlotte said, the Andy was unable to devote more or less all his time, or daily or regular time, to loading up the articles, and that's where the editor changed, and Charlotte sort of jumped in there. Andy has experience, or yeah, he still does. He has experience in running webinars. He went to Cambridge in science, and so on and so forth. And once we'd had the first or second, no later than that, he'd already designated me as the coordinator, which didn't mean necessarily that I would be the editor. And I remember Louise saying, you know, I'll blow my own trumpet here. I remember her saying that, Chris, you know, you're the most organised Bylines so far. You know, you've covered every meeting, you've summarised it, you prepared for the next one. So, I mean, it was made clear that we would all have to work quite hard on this. And perhaps I took that to heart and seriously. I wasn't too involved in many of the things that I'm now doing. So it was a case of devoting time to that. And then, of course, as we started, I think it was the 5th of January that we started, and off we went. And there were quite a few other people who were involved, people we knew and still do. I wouldn't say it was difficult. I wasn't doing the uploading. I was doing the coordinating, coordinating of various peoples and meetings primarily.
Well, the meetings were by Zoom by then anyway. In fact, all the meetings were by Zoom. But Magdalena started quite soon on social media. Magdalena, do you want to say anything about our social media outreach in those days?
Yes, I mean, for me, it was quite a steep learning curve because I had just discovered that I enjoyed writing. I originally joined, I was a very keen pro-EU activist, and analysing what caused Brexit made me realise that media had a very strong role to play, and so I was quite keen on having independent media and allowing people, ordinary people, to have a word. So that was my reason for joining. I mean, with English being my third language, you know, I hope I didn't cause too many problems, but I also did a bit of editing. I am former FCO, so I obviously had a strong interest in politics. And also I had to teach myself how to upload as well. I had never heard of WordPress before, etc. We had a lot of guidance from Louise, and we actually had quite a collection of documents to read through, and quite a few new skills to learn. So that's why you hear Louise's name pop up a lot, because we had quite a good cooperation with her. I think she was at the time the only employee of the Bylines network, so she was actually paid staff full time, I think, at the time. I mean, my specialism later developed because I was born in Hungary and former child refugee. So human rights and the Central and Eastern European, politics are especially interest to me. I mean, in many ways, I think that our Kent and Surrey Bylines has very high quality articles. It's very broad subject matter. I have been very active on social media, mostly on Facebook privately, and so I took on the social media work, but I am very disappointed with Facebook, and I ended up having wasting a lot of time with trolls and people who were very negative and were only there to criticize. Then I did more on Twitter, which unfortunately with Elon Musk now is also off the scale. So I have done a lot less. I'm on Blue Sky and on LinkedIn and on Instagram, but I must admit
I've recently taken out a Blue Sky account after I spoke to Ren, and you put my article on there. Thank you so much. And immediately on Blue Sky, I had quite a lot of feedback, and a conversation started, far more than I've had on Facebook. On our own Facebook, we get very little input from the public. On my own, I do get quite a bit, but you do, as Magdalena says, get trolls. You've got to moderate it, and that takes effort. And we're a small team. We haven't got the effort to do it, but this is where I feel that us authors can help do some of that work. And on Blue Sky now, I've already started. I will go out and moderate, and I will comment and reply, and hopefully get more, gradually spread the word. And I intend to do it in Australia when I'm there for a couple of months as well.
No, it's funny. Everyone, I think every episode we've done for the birthday episodes so far, when the question is asked, "How did you get started? How did things begin?" Louise's name pops up. So the notes I had was, "How did Kent and Surrey Bylines get started, and did it involve Louise Horton?" The question I've got, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, Chris. I mean, this all sort of got started in 2020, obviously with COVID going on. Sort of, what were the challenges that you all sort of experienced in the beginning? What were the sort of things you had to iron out?
I spent most of my career in universities in South Africa because my husband was South African, and I was abroad overseas in South Africa at the time of the Brexit vote, and I was so appalled that it was one of the motivations for me to return to Kent, where I spent my childhood. So I looked around when I arrived back in 2017 for whichever group was most active against Brexit, and alighted on the European movement. So I was already in the local European movement when Chris convened these meetings. But one of the strengths I feel I bring to Kent and Surrey Bylines is that my childhood was in a very rural part of Kent, in the very beautiful High Weald part. And so that's why I came in as a commissioning editor with a particular interest in making sure we got articles from across Kent. And some of our writers here, like Richard, for instance, I think I recruited him with great alacrity. In fact, went to have coffee with him to check out his knowledge of local government, because I was particularly keen that we should have a strength in following local politics. And when Surrey came in as well, I tried to reach out to the European movement people in Surrey, but I still think that our links with what's happening in local government in Surrey are not quite strong enough.
Kent and Surrey is like a very wide area, and I believe I've asked this for basically every anniversary episode, but like, how do you balance like the needs of like the needs and of course the news of like the massive urban areas like Dover and Canterbury and Guildford with like stuff areas where not a lot of things are going on, how do you avoid focusing on like the big cities or large towns in Guildford's case?
I don't think our links with Guildford are strong enough, actually. I hope there are some Guildford people listening to this podcast who will come in. And just now it's particularly important because Surrey is one of the pioneer authorities in the southeast going ahead with these unitary authorities. It's 2 years at least ahead of Kent. So really we should be paying attention to what is happening in Surrey, but we haven't got a strong enough writer on Surrey local politics yet.
I was just going to say, Kent has got a population of, virtually the same as Northern Ireland, and it has no devolved government at all. And you tend to get, like at the moment with the business of the failing water company, which is actually seems to be hiding away, and hopefully probably hopes that the problems will go away. I think our big problem is that we are often seen as the backyard of the really biggest metropolitan authority, which is obviously London. And we're very often swept up within those. In many ways, the links between Kent are more with Essex than they are with Surrey. I don't know why. There has always been this, it's possibly because we shared a tunnel and all the rest of it. And there has always been more links with Essex. I mean, for instance, I was on the many years ago, I was on the Kent and Essex Fisheries Committee. The only reason I was on it was because I'm the only one who knew about, I didn't know an awful lot about fishing, but I did know a lot about ships. And of course, they had their own ship. And the two authorities tended to work together. They were obviously Conservative controlled from since the inception almost. And I think that's the weird thing about Kent. It's a peninsula. It's not really linked to Sussex where it should be, and it's not really linked to the rest of the home counties in Surrey. It tends to act on its own. It is the largest local authority apart from Birmingham. It's the biggest library authority in the country. People don't understand that, but it is. It's often been given preferential status every time a Tory government gets in. And because mainly it's always tended to be fairly fly on the plate, straight and level. It's spoiling that in a moment because of its constant, pantomime antics that's going on at the moment in the Kem Currans of this world. But which is a real shame because there haven't been many female leaders in Kent, and she's reason to suggest that we should never any more. In that sense, so I can write about local things, but it's always going to be a thing on its own, Kent. It really is.
Richard mentioned that there seems to be more links with Essex. I've got a map of Kent in front of me, and if you think about it historically, it's a passing through county from London to mainland Europe, and it's also been at the forefront defending the realm, so to speak. And if you look at the motorways, they are east-west from London to Dover to Folkestone, and Sussex, as Richard mentioned, that's sort of a different area. Why am I mentioning this? Because it did come into our discussions about how we cover it and how we then approach and link up with Surrey. Geographically, it's the southeast, which includes Sussex, the three counties, but that all has a bearing on the topics, I think, that one chooses for articles.
I think possibly one reason, if you think we both share the side, we both border the Thames estuary all the way along, and that is one of the reasons on either side. So these are, that's why historically Essex and Kent have run together in some senses, and even if you go back to the Anglo-Saxon period, Kent was part. I know it was part of Wessex, but mostly it was linked up to Essex and the the East Anglia in some ways. We are not the borders within Surrey and Sussex have never been as important to. And if you look at the population, it's far over this way, while they're over towards. You've got Romney Marsh between the two, for instance, in Sussex. Surrey,
Romney Marsh is
yeah. So there's historical reasons behind it. It was interesting.
So this is another question that I've asked all the other groups that we've spoken to for their birthday anniversary episode. So what makes the Kent and Surrey Bylines perspective unique, do you think, within the Bylines network as a whole?
I think something that hasn't been mentioned is we do believe strongly in the gateway to Europe, which is also the motto of the East Kent European movement. But I think we probably feature more articles on Europe because we've got, Chris and Magdalena, and I mean, Mike wrote some, Tatiana's good. So I think we have more European articles because we're so near. We're very much aware that we're very near France and so on.
You got to understand it. I'm where I live. I'm near Calais by only 20 miles. I am to Maidstone.
Yeah, exactly.
And that has shaped it. I know there are many in this part of the world who somehow don't believe that Europe exists, but it does, and we can see it every day. And there will always be links with us as well, which is again makes Kent to some extent unique. There's no other part of Britain that is so closely linked to another part of Europe in any way. I mean, they may have links, for instance, Hull with Scandinavia, Liverpool with Ireland, etc., etc. But Kent is so near to everybody, to the mainland of Europe, that it makes it unique. I mean, it's the cockpit, really, why there's been all this trouble over Brexit, immigration, you name it, and it makes it unique.
Yes, to continue the theme, the comments that have just been mentioned. If you think Romney Marsh was mentioned, I wanted to say that's considered to be the fifth continent. They even wanted to become independent. They have their own flag, etc., etc. So, we've got our little idiosyncrasies in Kent. If you think about it, the Royal Military Canal was built to prevent Napoleonic invasion. There are all the castles, with Dover Castles, Walmer Castle, the Martello Towers, etc., all facing mainland Europe. So I think I would like to think that there's more, we're more conscious of being at the forefront of being with mainland Europe. And I wouldn't want to think that we're aggressively against it. I would want to think that we are linking. Geologically, it does link. The chalk of the Dover Cliffs goes right through to the Champagne region. And so geologically, it's one region. In fact, they're developing a geopark on both sides of the channel, not channel, but Straits of Calais or the Pas de Douves.
That's why the wine from Kent is so good.
So what are your hopes for the future of Kent and Surrey Bylines in the next 5 years?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think some of it has already started, which is it's very important for the older generation, and several of us on this call are of the older generation, to be able to pass across to younger folk. And we did have a surge of younger people. By younger, I mean under 30, coming in 6 months ago. Ren, in fact, is the only one here, and Tatiana, who exemplify those. And I would certainly like to see more young people coming on. Many of them are graduates, new graduates, sometimes in media studies. And we need to make sure that they're volunteering in the areas that they are most interested in and most skilled to do. So that's I'm optimistic we're going to get more younger people in.
I was over at the university on Monday with the EU Affairs Society. There are 29 other universities across Britain who have an EU Affairs Society, which has been set up by the EU delegation to the UK, Europe House in London. And they're very, very good on organising events. We've got an European Parliament simulation event coming up in January. Of course, I mention things like this, and I'm surprised that Charlotte hasn't pounced on me already and says, Chris, write an article about it.
Oh, now's your opportunity, Charlotte.
Yes, I mean, my family tease me that whenever I meet a new person, I'm always sizing them up for whether they can write an article for us.
Similarly to what Charlotte said, I think we need fresh blood. We need more young people. And obviously, I really believe in the right mixture between people with the experience that we older people bring along and some of the knowledge. I think we need both sides, and we need a nice balance between the two. I am obviously hoping to increase our readership, because as I said earlier, I believe we are publishing very high quality articles, and we hope that people will pay more attention to what we have to say.
Right, well, that was mostly the editorial team. So we thought we're going to echo what we did with Sussex and hear from some of the contributors. So how did each of you first get involved in Kent and Surrey?
To be honest, I can't remember where I first heard about Bylines, but I just immediately thought that it was a really good idea and I'd like to get involved with it. And as I've worked as a freelance editor and proofreader for some years, I thought they might be able to use my skills.
Right. Well, it was, believe it or not, it was Charlotte. I am chair of the local branch of the European movement. For a time, I was relieved of the chair, and almost instantly, I got a phone call from Charlotte saying, "Now you've got all this spare time. I understand that you like to proofread. How about coming and doing something for what was in those days Kent Bylines?" And I said, okay. And then I found that being a proofreader for Charlotte meant actually being a sub-editor, which meant that I went through correcting people's, not only correcting people's spelling, but also correcting their layout. Tell me what it is, layout. And then she said, "Well, can you write me something on that?" And I found myself writing one or two. So it's reassuring to go back and find that in the archive there are still one or two of my slightly off the wall articles, because I don't write really deep dive articles, really well researched articles. But we do have some of those. I mean, one of those outstanding for me is local government, because of course Kent is infamous for another point of view, being governed by the Reform UK example county, exemplar county. In the end, there were various things happening in my life, which meant I no longer had the energy or the time, and so I pulled back. And as I pulled back, I discovered just how much time and how much energy I had been putting into it, and I missed some of it, but not much. But I did help introduce some of the software and get to learn how to use it. Now I've completely forgotten. I can't even name it, but I think I'm getting memory problems anyway. So anyway, we would like to wish Kent and Surrey a very happy 5th anniversary. I was there very close to the beginning. We were there for the merger with Surrey, and keep following its fortunes.
In my introduction in part 1, I did say that I came in by being asked to become a member of the Committee of Remain in Spain, and that led to me starting to write articles for you. But it's led on to a lot more things as well. I'm still a member of the European movement and keep close contacts with that. I've thoroughly enjoyed what I've been doing with Kent and Surrey. I like it when we work more as a team together. My last article, the sub-editor was Raji, another new, young graduate person coming in for the first time. And when I started getting to know what her interests were, I thought, hang on, we can encourage her to be an author as well as an editor. So if we work as a team together, I think that's a good thing to do. Apart from that, I also have another webinar on Saturday with the Lib Dems in Europe group. And our guest speaker there happens to be the replacement MP for Michael Gove, Surrey Heath Council. That was my former constituency, and I changed from Conservatives to Lib Dem when he got in. And I think we can spread the word and put the message that we're trying to get out there in other ways, through the European movement, through other pro-EU organisations. Also, I was in on the webinar that we had on trying to work together with professional journalists. Now, what I got out of that was, it was a good talking shop, but I want to see an action plan. What do you want us to do to try and work more with professional journalists? What I did get out of it was I should find my own niche subject and push that and push it and try and spread that wider. So it's really, how do we get our message out there in a wider form through social media and other ways?
I'm a relatively recent arrival with Kent and Surrey Bylines. It was a combination of anger and anxiety which led me to contact Charlotte, because I am genuinely anxious about the future. I was very active in the 1975 referendum campaign. And when Cameron decided to have another one, and we were going to have for 2016, I thought at the time, well, the British people are a pragmatic, sensible people, and once they hear the facts, once again, they will vote yes. The lesson was that when you offer people a combination, either facts or emotion, they opt for emotion. And that's what has caused me to be anxious, because I was angry at the result of the 2016 referendum. I've got over it by now, and I don't expect to see us return to Europe in my lifetime, though we may see us into a customs union. But the anxiety is what worries me. I think there are elements within reform which are very, very dangerous. 10%, more than 10% of their parliamentary candidates last year had links to fascist organizations. So it was that which led me to look at something, and I contacted Charlotte with a small idea, and she then asked me to write something more. And that's what's sort of fueled me. And I'm finding it very gratifying to do some writing again. I'm not churning out the stuff as I'm rather slow on this, and I haven't done as much as some of this. The amount of copy that some of you have produced is astonishing and admirable. But that's my background. My background itself is I worked at the House of Commons as a member of the parliamentary lobby for more than 40 years. And so I was quite pleased to get back and do some serious writing again.
Do you want me to start? Shall I start? I was just looking for some voluntary work to begin with, just to get some experience, because I work in the social care sector. And I'd quite like to work within this sector. So I was just browsing through the internet, and KSB came up. So I sent I got in touch with Charlotte. She asked me to send my CV, which I did. A quick sort of interview type thing from Sean. And I've been here now for about, must be 4 months. And as a beginner, a learner editor, everyone's been really patient and encouraging, and it's given me a lot more confidence in myself as well. And I've written a few articles, and I hope to write a few more as well. That's how I enjoy doing it. So, that's it really. To the point.
So I joined Kent Surrey Bylines last year in the summer. I finished. So I was studying at Queen Mary University in London, and I was also studying in Paris. I was on English and French law program, and in the summer I kind of was, because I didn't succeed in my studies in Paris, I ended up in a situation where I didn't know what to do next. So I also found this opportunity online, and I decided to try it because I'm interested in reading, in writing, and interested in politics. And I'm also Ukrainian, so I saw this was a good opportunity for me to speak about Ukraine, about the wars that's currently happening there, and also a good way for me to gain experience, to get to strengthen my writing and my research skills.
So we've already talked about sort of what topics all of you are sort of like you're focusing on and what you like writing about, but sort of what, if you could choose one, would be your favorite topic to write about?
Well, I've just chosen mine, and it's going to be marine conservation, because 70% of the earth is covered by oceans. We can't even speak to the whales yet, but we will be able to.
Fingers crossed.
As well as being editor-in-chief, I also write articles, especially from a Kent perspective. And I'm very keen on 2 topics. I'm watching with great interest what's going to happen with HS1 and our train connections with Europe for the Kent stations. And I'm also alarmed at the water crisis, the drought in Kent. We still have got a hosepipe ban. And so I also watch the water companies quite closely, and we'll be writing more on that.
Can I come in now? As a former refugee, I I'm very concerned about the hostile environment, about going against international treaties, going against human rights. In my work at the Foreign Office, I was concentrating on human rights, and I did work for a year at the Council of Europe as well. So I'm very worried about the ECHR being mentioned as something undesirable. And obviously, with my Hungarian background and the Hungarian elections in April, I think will have a huge impact on the geopolitical situation globally. So I'm actually going to be very actively involved there. And so I do write a lot about, and I'm spending a lot more time now until the elections, trying to fight the far right and spreading the information about the danger of people not standing up against racism, vilifying of migrants, of vulnerable people, and believing the lies. And I have actually lived in a Russian-ruled country as a child. So, like Tatiana, I know all the horrific effect that a Russian influence can have on a country.
Yep, Nick. You're still muted.
As you can tell from my background, I do have a certain interest in metrication. I tend to veer to write articles on the ridiculous dragging of feet after 60 years, our inability to complete the changeover to metric units. And so I've written 1 or 2 articles on that.
Chris?
Can I come in?
Yeah, Bill.
To follow in from what Magdalena said, I mean, she covered the things which worry me. There are things like the European Convention on Human Rights, the atmosphere, the climate, the things which are happening, and I think probably come the next elections, we will see some of the national papers move from supporting the Conservatives to supporting Farage. And these things do worry me, and these are things which I would like to look at, and I think those are a direct threat to what should be a open and humane society.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Chris, did you want to come in?
Yes. I mean, just to follow on the theme of what I would want to write about, I am chair of East Kent. I'm also chair of the Education Committee in the European Movement. So we have, at the moment, we're doing the national campaign for Erasmus Plus, and we have other projects in mind. I also have links with Pulse of Europe in Germany. All these things I would love to write about, and to convey the ideas of what's happening in Germany and so on. But because I'm organizing things so much, I just simply don't have time and get round to doing things, writing articles. You know, Charlotte still says, Chris, write an article on it. But it's a question of time. For instance, I was in Luxembourg in Schengen on the 40th anniversary on the 14th of June this year. And I was planning to write an article about it. It's a question of time. But if I had time, I would want to raise awareness of the rest of Europe to this island off the Eurasian landmass.
Yep,
Tatiana.
Well, majority of my articles are focused on Ukraine and on Russian propaganda, so I'm actually not sure about any local issues that are underreported in the mainstream media, because I think because of my focus on more on something that's international issue. So I do not have an answer to this question.
I mean, I recently wrote an article on catapult crime because that's a big issue where around Kent at the moment with youngsters using these catapults to injure animals and sometimes even kill them, and people's windows are being cracked and smashed with kids using these things. So I wrote an article about that. I can't really think. I'm just trying to think of.
I was going to say, when you said catapults, I was just imagining like children building trebuchets in the park.
Yeah. These things are, pretty lethal.
What do you find the most challenging part about drafting your pieces? That's something I'd like to know.
I think one of the most challenging things about when writing articles is to in not doing too much copying of the information and ensure that you also include your own thoughts and your own ideas on what you think on the subject, and so it doesn't look like the article was completely copied from other sources. I think the writer needs to add its own voice into every article and what the writer thinks about the subject personally.
Mm.
Always finding copyright-free photos, and because of that, I've taken out my own iStock contract, which makes it a lot easier. And if anybody else wants to use it, they can.
God, it felt that deep in my soul.
I was going to say, I've been stung on that before. I can relate to that quite heavily. Yeah,
Nick?
Finding the ending.
Well, I'll jump in then because I also write articles. As a former academic, I used to supervise postgraduate students and so on. So I'm quite fussy about references, and I'm not really happy about just taking the latest headline, although I'm aware that many of our readers are simply skipping through from headline to headline. But if I'm going to put a link in one of my articles, I want it to be the best authority. So I do spend some time looking at things like the House of Commons library or the company reports from the water companies to improve the quality of our links.
For me, because I do write about things I feel quite strongly about, so for me it's very often difficult to keep it short enough to keep people interested enough, because obviously I'm quite involved in the subject. So I've got to cut back and ensure that it has a direct link and that I keep people's interest up.
My biggest problem is getting people to get back to me. If I'm trying to contact somebody, the departments are not too bad. The Ministry of Justice or the courts, but particularly academia, they're a nightmare to get them to come back. They don't seem to want to respond. It's getting people to come back and speak to you or give you a sensible response. And that's been the biggest problem. You just have, but that's something you just have to keep on with. But that's it.
What advice would you all give to somebody who's looking to get involved, not just in Kent and Surrey, but with like the wider Bylines network, or even just citizen journalism in general?
One of the things we must continue to do is combat the fake news and distorted news that is out there in all publications in Britain and America. You can't believe a thing they say.
Well, it's not really new, is it? People have always been have always challenged. I mean, you get a range of views in newspapers. The newspapers are coming to an end. The most newspapers now are just a shadow of what they were 10, 15 years ago. But there's always been cynicism or skepticism about how reliable and how truthful something is. People will take their own perspective, and even when a report is very straightforward and accurate, there are still people who don't believe that. I think, was it Dr. You asked me what advice, well, you asked us what advice. Well, I think Dr. Johnson said only fools write for anything but money. But I think you've got to write for, I think you can convince people that Dr. Johnson was wrong, that there are really times when writing for the good of the community as a whole, or an issue, is well worth putting in the labour in. And there are a lot of people out there who have considerable experience, expertise, whose work could be useful to other people. And I think if they can be convinced that what they've got to say is worth reading, then that's what we're going to do. Just get. And of course, you've got to get more readers. I don't know how you attract. I don't know. I'm actually interested to how the network as a whole manages to attract readers to particular outlets.
No, just go for it. I mean, I was quite nervous about doing this, to be honest, because I didn't really think that I'd be able to sort of, I don't know, do it really. I was so lacking in confidence. But yes, it's really helped me. Plus, it keeps my brain active as well. Gives me something to think about, and stuff. But as I said, I came across it, and I just think it's a brilliant. It's just a brilliant platform. The articles that are written are really well done and everything, and as I say, I'm learning a lot from reading the articles as well as editing them, so especially on the political side, because I really don't know enough about politics, but I'm learning through reading articles more about it all. So
I just completely agree with Karen. I think the main thing is just not to be afraid, and just do it. Yes, it's really important, and it's really important for the contribution to our society, to let people. It's really important for people to speak, to express their views, to talk, to discuss issues, to try to find solutions to the problems that we face. So it's really important to just feel confident that what you're doing is important, and just not to be afraid.
So I'd like to know what, in your opinions, will be the topics that will sort of dominate your coverage over the next few years. Are there any things that you see in the pipeline that you think are going to feature particularly heavily? I was going to say, Mike, it looked like you were about to come in then. You go for it.
Well, it's got to be the geopolitical situation. We are in the most dangerous situation now because war is changing. We are now into a totally different sort of war, which is not war, it's not peace, and it's extremely dangerous. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis many, many years ago, and we're in a more dangerous situation at that. And Europe has got to pull itself together, put reliance on America behind us while Trump is there, and we have to support Ukraine. That's the key thing. Putin must not be appeased. He must not take any territory, including Crimea, legally from Ukraine. And he must return the children.
I can't think of anything specific to Surrey. I am part of the local water testing group with the water rangers, but obviously that is a nationwide issue. But when you actually do the testing yourself and you see how many bacteria there are in your water, I'm surprised that it's not being addressed more quickly than it is. And I suppose another issue, which again is countrywide, is the danger of reform. We have a Liberal Democrat council for the first time in memory. I think we've been Conservative since forever, and as people have probably heard, there were a lot of problems in Woking, particularly financial issues, which eventually led to our Section 14 effective bankruptcy. And the Lib Dems council is now making sterling efforts to put that right. And I don't think we have a big reform issue locally, but we've had a cross painted on the roundabout. We've had flags popped up here and there. It's not a big thing, but I think it's something we have to continue to be aware of.
Yes, I love Mike's writing. I always find it fascinating and informative. But looking at Kent and Surrey, I would say that the war in Ukraine is probably low down on people's concerns, and again, I think we're hearing that the major concern of the people is cost of living.
Yeah, so the question was that Ukraine's obviously brilliantly important. The question, I guess, was more aimed towards what topics in your region do you think will dominate over the next?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. But yeah, that was sort of where I was aiming that question.
Sorry, can I come in here? I mean, local government is very important, and looking at our readership stats, I'm sorry to say, Mike, in fact, the local government things score more highly than defence. I mean, this is just how, people are skipping to the headlines about local government. It's partly, of course, because of the antics of the Reform Party in Kent, but it's also because Surrey is the pioneer in the south on bringing together unitary authorities under a mayor. And this whole super mayor thing that was tried out in the north of England, we're really rather apprehensive as to whether it'll work in the south of England. And as I say, Surrey is ahead of us. They're going to have to do elections next year for this. Kent is the last in the queue, another 2 years. But I think we will need to watch what a difference changes in local government make, because I'm all too aware that a lot of money passes through local government, and things that people care about, like adult social care, special education for children, transport, potholes, etc., come under local government, and it's going through the biggest change in 50 years.
Yeah. Agreed.
Can I come in here as well? I think climate change is something that will have to be part of what we write about, because we do have a very rich wildlife that is in danger. We have had quite a few groups writing about that. Obviously, the climate change, we have floods, we have unusual weather. So I think it will be something that we cannot ignore.
And we'll go Nick and then Chris, I think.
Yeah, okay. I remember what it was, and it's to do very much with what Charlotte was talking about, local government. I'm particularly focusing on local transit, because the other big thing that I'm fascinated by and very much want is light rail. And I think certainly looking at Kent and the adopted, I think it's out of the 4 areas in Kent have generally approved 4D, choice for option 4D on local authority reorganisation, which would give a huge light rail link across the north of the county from Dartford to Faversham and maybe beyond. And I think that because we're now confronted with the fact that the government has given the go-ahead for the Lower Thames crossing, I think a good proportion of the people in North Kent are absolutely horrified at the idea of the Lower Thames crossing, which is just going to introduce further
congestion, I would say. Yes,
congestion. Exactly. Yeah.
It's not good for the middle of Kent either. I mean, it's just going to increase traffic up the M20. But anyway,
Yeah.
Okay. Now Chris H.
In spite of what's been said by Charlotte and the focus on the local government, and then by Nico about trams. Well, no, trams, I agree with him, but the Lower Thames crossing, I think you've only got to look across the water and see what's going on in the Netherlands in respect of infrastructure, moving people around the country. They've got a fantastic system of finding solutions to small space. And I travel this summer I traveled in the Netherlands. It is absolutely fantastic what they do. And these are the sort of things that I think I would want to broaden the horizon of people's outlook. And that's where the larger scale things that are going on, the geopolitical situation, I fully agree with Mike and with Bill, that the anxiety and the worry about what is going to happen with Europe. I've been passionate about Europe since I was in the sixth form and living in Germany and living over here. And I think there are so many things that Britain is behind on.
Absolutely.
Trams and cycling routes. And it would answer Magdalena's concerns. If more people cycled, it would solve a lot of health problems. And all of these things are 40 kilometres away from us here in East Kent. And, we've only got to travel across. And it's a case of making people aware of these things. I wish I had 48 hours a day in which I could spend the 24 hours writing articles about all the fantastic things that are happening on mainland Europe. I watch German news solely. Ukraine stars in it daily. And I don't watch much British TV. I watch programs on German TV. I am going to get in touch with West German Rundfunk in Cologne. And I believe that there are programs that should be put onto British TV, the media, raising awareness of our neighbours and what life is like in Estonia and in Finland, in Malta, in Spain, and broadening their horizons. And my background is in teaching German and French. And, that's what I've spent my life on, and doing school exchanges. So I know that young people enjoyed the exchanges, meeting other cultures, and this is what young people want. That's why Erasmus Plus is important. I'm going off the mark, but raising awareness of mainland Europe. Europe is such a fantastic place to live in comparison with other continents of this world. It's unique. Climate, the geography of it. We may be a large peninsula at the end of Eurasia, but it's got so much going for it. And those are the things that I would want to write about, and the threat under which Europe is at the moment.
What are you most excited about for the next year of Kent and Surrey Bylines? Like any articles or projects coming up that you guys are really excited by?
Yep, Chris?
10 years after that sad moment of history, the 23rd of June 2016, Neil McGregor said he's had two moments in his lifetime. He was the manager, the director of the British Museum. He went over to the Humboldt Institute in Berlin. One key moment of his life was 1989, and the other key moment was 23rd of June 2016. And that's going to happen. The European movement will be doing things there to commemorate, to remind people in a positive, pro-EU, forward-thinking manner. So that's a key event that's going to happen. Also, the reset, I think, will continue. So the summit in May between the UK and the EU. If I have any more thoughts, I'll let someone else say something at the moment.
So I don't know. I'm just probably because I feel like we live in such a changing world. So I'm just feel like I'm constantly like just reading the news, and the one thing is just, every day for me is just a new day. When something, I just read what's happening, and I think from there, and just every day for me is just the news when something happens. So it's just for me, I live by just reading the news, and so I don't think I am excited or I'm other than waiting for something.
Thank you all very much for joining me to celebrate a very special birthday. Here's to the last 5 years, and here's to 5 more. Thank you very much, listeners, for joining us. I've been Julian in Bristol.
I've been Chris in London.
From Magdalena in Spain.
Chris in Canterbury and Bavaria.
Charlotte in Ashford.
Bill in Ainsford in Kent.
Mike in Spain.